I find myself in a complicated familial predicament and seek some clarity to ensure my sanity is intact. At 28 years old, I recently learned that my great-aunt, who was a professional poker player, bequeathed me $800,000 from her will. This amount represents only a fraction of her much larger fortune. However, there's a dilemma. My mother, who is vehemently opposed to gambling in any form, is outraged that the inheritance originates from what she deems an unethical source. Her opposition is so strong that she argues I should decline the bequest. Furthermore, she has insinuated that she is more deserving of the money, claiming she could make better use of it and cleanse its source by investing it back into the family, a notion I find utterly preposterous. To provide additional background, my mother, in her 50s, has consistently expressed her disapproval of my aunt's profession, perceiving the legacy as not only undeserved, but also morally corrupt. From my perspective, this inheritance offers a pathway to eliminate my student loans, establish financial security, purchase a home, and notably, support my family, including my mother, in substantial ways. I have proposed compromises, such as donating a part of the inheritance to charity, yet my mother remains adamant, it's all or nothing. Accepting the inheritance would be against her wishes, placing me in a dilemma between financial stability and maintaining a harmonious relationship with my mother, with whom I share a close bond akin to best friends. This situation has caused me considerable distress, leaving me to question whether accepting the inheritance, given its origins and my mother's strong opposition, makes me unreasonable. The potential loss of my relationship with my mother over this issue deeply troubles me. My mother's stance, suggesting she could sanitize the inheritance by redirecting it into the family, strikes me as an outright fabrication. It's clear she did not receive anything from my aunt due to her negative attitude and judgmental nature, and now she views this as an opportunity for gain. Accepting the money and allowing my mother to preach her views seems like the only viable option. Consulting a financial advisor would be wise, especially since this stance from my mother may lead to other relatives seeking a share of the inheritance. The advice I've received underscores the apparent greed motivating my mother's arguments, suggesting that the inheritance's origins are irrelevant to her. It's crucial to allocate some of the funds for long-term benefits, resisting any manipulation to use it for her purposes. Accepting the inheritance is a decision that aligns with my aunt's wishes, offering a chance to settle debts and secure a home, irrespective of my mother's disregard for the source of the funds. She's merely attempting to manipulate you with guilt, hoping you'll hand the inheritance over to her out of a sense of obligation. It's clear she envies the fact that you received the money and she did not. If she believes that her investing the money in the family would sanitize it, then your investment in your own future would serve the same purpose. Do not succumb to her pressure, OP. This money is rightfully yours. Your aunt intended for you to have it, fully aware of your mother's greedy and narcissistic tendencies, aiming to shield you from her. Listen, OP, consider this as the cost of liberating yourself from a manipulative narcissist. As an adult, you're not required to seek your mother's approval, justify your actions to her, or make compromises, such as donations, to appease her. This situation should serve as a stark realization that she does not prioritize your best interests, is attempting to deceive you for her gain, and such behavior is not characteristic of a supportive parent. Whenever she attempts to argue, simply remind her of her jealousy. Maintain your distance from her, especially with your tainted money. Over the holidays, as a young adult female, I had the chance to travel to the Caribbean with my neighbors, acting as their nanny. Although my parents had reservations, the trip took place after Christmas, so they consented. The arrangement was straightforward, a 10-day stay at an all-inclusive resort, where I would be responsible for the children for 7 days and nights, in exchange for $500 and 3 days to myself. The rooms were interconnected, with a door between them. On my parents' advice, I ensured all details were documented to avoid any confusion. The agreement was I would work for 2 days and then have a day off, repeatedly. I eagerly explored the available activities and excursions for my days off. On my 3rd day off, I had planned a scuba diving excursion. I left early for the adventure and upon my return, found the parents angry for leaving without informing them. They had made plans with another couple to go golfing on my day off, which inadvertently affected their plans. Their frustration persisted even after our return, leading to them publicly labeling me as irresponsible. After another family reached out to hear my side, I shared the written agreement, validating my stance. This prompted them, along with my parents, to defend me publicly, exposing the neighbor's attempt to alter our agreement unilaterally. This incident has caused a stir, with other babysitters and their families boycotting my neighbors. Although I regret the fallout, as they did compensate me for the trip, their lack of communication and willingness to adjust plans without consultation has led to their current predicament. They blame me for not discussing any issues, but it was they who failed to uphold our agreed terms. I'm not the one who made this situation public. Not at all. We had an agreement in writing, which they insisted on. If they wished to renegotiate the terms of our agreement, it was their responsibility to discuss this with me at an appropriate time, not impulsively on the day they wanted to make changes. Even then, I would have been completely within my rights to decline their request, in line with the original agreement. I did nothing wrong. I adhered to what was agreed upon. They chose to defame me on social media, which seems to have been an attempt to shame me. Fortunately, their strategy backfired, resulting in them being blacklisted by other sitters. You should not feel bad for them. They are reaping the consequences of their actions. This situation is not your responsibility in the slightest. I just hope you received your $500. They suggested I should have spoken to them if I had a problem, but that opportunity was lost the moment they chose to publicize their grievances. Don't feel guilty. There are many deserving parents and children in need of babysitters, too important to settle for those unwilling to respect hardworking sitters. 7 days of babysitting are worth more than $500, plus those 3 days off were part of your payment. Recently, my family was invited to my brother's wedding, myself, my partner, our daughter, 21, our son, 18, and everyone except our younger son, a teen, due to it being a child-free event. I reached out to my brother for clarification, having attended child-free weddings before that allowed teenagers. My brother apologetically explained his stance on not making exceptions to avoid appearing biased against guests with younger children. I respected his decision, as I myself had a child-free wedding before starting a family. My brother has 2 teenage children from a previous marriage, and I assumed they, along with 2 of my sister's underage children, a young teen and a mid-teen, wouldn't be invited either. With the wedding being abroad, we planned to fly out for the weekend. To ensure my teen son didn't feel excluded, I arranged for him and his cousin to enjoy the hotel amenities and explore the city as a family the next day. My brother liked the plan, but upon sharing it with my sister, she was surprised, stating her children were invited and unaware of the child-free policy. She decided to verify this with my brother. Upon hearing that the wedding was for individuals aged 13 and above, it became apparent that my niece was invited. Consequently, both my sister and I approached my brother for clarification, where he confessed that my son was the only one under 18 in our immediate family not invited, without providing a reason, despite my inquiries. In response to this exclusion, both my sister and I decided not to attend the wedding, angered by the situation and because she holds a deep affection for my son. This decision has led to criticism from my mother, who accuses us of being childish and disappointing my brother. Furthermore, my brother's fiancée is also upset with us, claiming that there was a valid reason for my son's exclusion, yet still not disclosing it. My brother-in-law is equally frustrated, blaming me for my sister's absence from the wedding. This has left me feeling regretful, wishing I hadn't stirred the pot, yet wondering if I am at fault. However, diving deeper into our family dynamics, it's revealed that we are a Christian family, with my brother's fiancée being particularly devout, contrasting with the rest of us who are less so, except for my son who has distanced himself from Christianity in recent years. This shift has caused some family tension, though I can't confirm if this is the exact reason for his exclusion. If the criteria for attending the wedding are based on age, it seems inconsistent and possibly pretextual, hinting at underlying reasons related to faith. Regarding a separate family matter, when my niece was expecting, she inquired about using a traditional family name that has been passed down to the first daughter of each generation for over a century, a name shared by my mother, my late daughter, and myself. Her request, not intended as a tribute but stemming from jealousy of the tradition, was declined by me, fearing it would further exacerbate my grief. Although this decision was unpopular, it became moot when she had a son. This series of events underscores the complexities and sensitivities inherent in familial relationships and traditions. When my mother informed me that my niece is pregnant again, this time with a girl, and she has chosen to name her after my late daughter, a family name we share, I was deeply hurt. My mother reminded her of the significance of this name, not only because it's hers, but because it's also the name of my late daughter. This decision affects not just me but my daughter's surviving sister, who will now be deprived of the opportunity to name her future daughter in honor of her deceased sibling. I don't expect my mother, sister, or niece to fully grasp the depth of my grief, as they haven't experienced the loss of a child. However, I believe it's reasonable to expect that if a grieving mother expresses a wish not to have her late daughter's name reused, that wish should be respected without debate or guilt. Hearing another child called by my daughter's name is excruciating enough, but to have this decision made knowingly by my family feels like a betrayal, especially by my mother. My mother argued that if my surviving daughter has a child in the future, she could also use the name, implying that having two family members with the same name wouldn't be an issue. This rationale does not ease my pain. Am I wrong for being upset and refusing to endorse this decision? Some argue that sharing a family name among cousins isn't problematic, pointing out that for years, multiple family members shared the same name without issue. They suggest that my refusal to allow the name's use might end a long-standing family tradition and accuse me of jealousy and selfishness. They claim my grief should not dictate the naming rights of another's child, emphasizing that the tradition encompasses more than just my personal loss. Yet, the suggestion that my pain should be set aside for the sake of tradition feels dismissive of the profound and lasting impact my daughter's death has had on me. The implication that my surviving daughter could use the name in the future does little to address the immediate sense of loss and isolation this decision has caused. Is it unreasonable to wish to protect the memory of my daughter in this way, or must I concede to the pressures of family tradition and the desires of others, despite the personal agony it causes? After reading all the comments, I've come to understand that I am indeed in the wrong. Honestly, receiving this feedback has made me realize that I may be the problem. I acknowledge my mistake and plan to discuss this experience in depth with my therapist to understand how it has opened my eyes. Thank you for helping me see this. My sister Edna, who is 21, and I share a close bond, not just as siblings but as best friends. Since our mom passed away 16 years ago and our relationship with our dad has been strained, I've always tried to be there for her. Edna, who has been living independently for the past 3 years, recently shared with me that she is pregnant, a piece of news known only to her boyfriend Harry, 27, and me. Harry, who has been in a relationship with Edna for over a year and a half, is respectful and treats her well. Despite their relatively short time together, they have a stable relationship, though, like any couple, they face disagreements. Both Edna and Harry work jobs that pay above minimum wage, which is commendable for two young people starting their lives together. However, when Edna revealed her pregnancy, I questioned the circumstances, learning it wasn't entirely planned, but not prevented due to a lack of extensive protection, which I found irresponsible given their age, financial situation, and living conditions. Expressing my concerns, I suggested Edna reconsider the pregnancy, highlighting their current unsuitability for parenthood. This conversation, unfortunately, led to her becoming upset and accusing me of being unsupportive. Since then, we haven't spoken, and while I want to be there for her, I find it challenging to support a decision I believe was not well thought out. The feedback I've received has been a wake-up call. I understand now that my approach was not appropriate. It's not my place to suggest such a personal decision to my sister, especially when she did not seek my advice on this matter. If I wish to mend our relationship and support my sister, I must apologize and respect her choices, acknowledging that many people become parents at a young age and manage to create loving, supportive environments for their children. It's her decision, not yours. Holding such a dismissive stance reflects a lack of genuine love. True affection involves guiding loved ones away from potentially harmful choices, not blindly supporting every decision they make. Deciding to have a child at a young age without financial security is ill-advised, and the frequency of such choices does not diminish their imprudence. Although it ultimately remains the sister's decision, true love involves honest communication about the realities of her situation, not endorsing every decision unconditionally. Contrarily, questioning the relevance of marital status or age in parenting capabilities can appear judgmental and elitist, especially when critiquing their educational achievements and employment status. It's unjust to impose your rigid standards of readiness for parenthood on your sister. Suggesting she undergo the distress of terminating a pregnancy because she doesn't align with your expectations is incredibly insensitive. Approaching her with such a harsh and unwelcome perspective is not only offensive but deeply lacking in empathy.